Topic number 2 on the Savage Nation is Facebook. Did you invest in Facebook? Do you believe the stock was manipulated? Did you dump shares over the weekend? Should Zuckerberg and Morgan Stanley be investigated for stock manipulation? In the same sequence of questions, what is the difference between Madoff and Zuckerberg? It's a question no one dares ask, but it actually needs to be asked. My immediate answer, and I don't know whether it's accurate, is when I ask myself, what is the difference between Bernie Madoff and Mark Zuckerberg? My immediate answer is 30 years. But I don't know if that's an accurate answer. It's just my immediate intuitive reaction. But what is the difference between Madoff and Zuckerberg? Madoff ran a Ponzi scheme claiming that if you invested in certain stocks that he recommended, you'd make money. And he took the money from other investors and gave it to the next chain of investors and so forth and so on until the whole thing went up in smoke. How does that differ from Facebook? Can you explain it to me? What is the difference between what Bernie Madoff did and what Morgan Stanley and Zuckerberg allegedly did with Facebook's shares? Tell me if there's any difference. Educate me, because I'm not a man who understands these things. This is for somebody with a great intelligence who understands how stock manipulation differs from stock promotion, which differs from stock selling, which differs from the stock market, which differs from Zuckerberg, which differs from Madoff. I'd like to know the difference. As I say, I may be wrong, but do you think the Facebook stock was manipulated? Did you buy Facebook shares? Did you dump Facebook shares? You see, I went in there Friday, and I said, by the way, on the air, I said, you all know what's going to happen Monday. Didn't I tell you the stock would go down? If you would put $1 million into a short sale on Facebook shares and had the guts to hold it until it dipped 2 points, you would have made a lot of money. Okay, you would have made an awful lot of money, as some of the Sharpies who took your money going in made this morning. Do you believe the stock, Zuckerberg stock, whatever it's called, Zuckerface or Faceberg? What was it, Zuckerface or Faceberg? I don't even remember what it is. Zuckerface is the stock. The Zuckerface stock has dropped dramatically, as we all feared it would, because it was obviously propped up by the underwriter. So therefore, it was a manipulated stock. In my opinion, this was the Zucker stock was definitely manipulated. The Faceberg stock was, somebody played with this. I'd like to know what you think about this. Was the stock manipulated? Was Zuckerface manipulated by anybody? New York, Larry, well, what do you think? Was Zuckerface stock manipulated?
Yes, it certainly was manipulated. Don't forget that stock was supposed to come out at 28, and they turned around and they pushed it up. They issued more stock to make more money. The underwriters are corrupt. That whole Wall Street is ready to go under.
Do you think that Zuckerberg and Morgan Stanley should be investigated for stock manipulation?
Definitely. They should be investigated, and the government is unbelievable.
Well, here's the problem. There is no government. The Wall Street manipulators are the government, as I pointed out, both in trickle-up poverty and trickle-down tyranny. There is now no difference between Wall Street and the administration, whether it had been Bush, who put a stooge in by the name of Chris Cox, who let this happen, which crashed the economy before, and Obama. They are basically puppets of Wall Street, in my opinion.
You're right. They're the most corrupt people I've ever seen.
In my entire life, I don't know how Zuckerface stock cannot be investigated.
Definitely.
I mean, to me, Zuckerface looks like maybe he's moving to Macau. I don't know. He got married the next day. But truthfully, come on, I'm just kidding now. Is Zuckerface different than Madoff, and how so? Alan in Las Vegas, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Michael, you've done well for yourself. There's a big difference between Zuckerberg and Madoff. Madoff was a complete fraud, frauded all his investors. He sold stock that didn't exist and created a tremendous Ponzi scheme. There was never any stock. Zuckerberg created a business that millions and millions of people use. And
well, no one's contesting that, but is it $100 billion worth of a company that is now bigger than any company in America? It's bigger than Boeing and General Motors? You're telling me that this business model is worth more than those companies?
Well, there are parameters as to how much stock you get, how much you charge for your stock on an IPO.
Now, listen, that's what I'm asking you. In other words, how in the world can a company be worth $100 billion that in essence produces nothing? To me, it's not much different than what Madoff did.
Because of the amount of people that are on it and using it, and the amount of...
That's right, the amount of people who are using it, but does that equal $100 billion in valuation? And this is something that the SEC is supposed to control before an IPO is released. They have to help value a stock. Otherwise, you could say a stock is worth $1 trillion.
Well, that's...
All right, you see, that's the problem. We have no government. The Security Exchange Commission doesn't exist. There was a time it existed. It was established after the crash of 1929 in order to make sure that people like Bernie Madoff couldn't do what he did, in order to make sure that Barney Frank and Chris Dodd were not able to do the things that they did. There were controls put in place. But then along came Bill Clinton, and he eliminated one of these controls. You know that. I pointed it out in great detail. Then Bush came along. He eliminated the next control. The next thing you had in 2008 was the crash of 2008. So now the crash is allegedly over because the savior, God himself, Obama, has come along and saved the economy. And along comes Zuckerface with a product called Zuckerface. And all of a sudden, Zuckerface is worth more than the two biggest companies that we know of. And the stock collapses the day after it's released on a Friday. You're not telling me that this is not a reflection of fraud in some way? I disagree with you. To me, this is absolutely something that should be investigated by the government, but there is no government. Charlie Schumer, of course, doesn't have a big mouth for this. Schumer, who knows everybody on Wall Street, who takes a big foot down there every once in a while to collect a few bags of donations. Or why doesn't a big mouth Schumer do an investigation? There should be a senatorial hearing in full public sight, televised for the world to see, where Zuckerface comes in the undershirt and a skateboard and tells us, oh, gee, by golly, be whiz, be God, I'm a genius. Well, I did the best. I have no... And then get one of the Morgan Stanley suits. I'd like to see these people sweat before the American public. How about you? I'll be back. Savage. Is there a difference between what Bernie Madoff did and what Morgan Stanley and Facebook pulled off on Friday? I mean, you say, oh, come on the face of it. I mean, Facebook is something valuable, and what Madoff created was nothing. There was nothing there. Well, some would argue that what Facebook has created, there's nothing there. So you say, well, what is value? I mean, what has value? I mean, to me, something that's real is valuable. But I'm different than you. I mean, a car has value. A desk has value. A sandwich has value. But what value does a stock have? Can anyone listening to this show tell me what is the true value of a stock? In the old days, it was based upon the sales of a company, the health of the company financially, and projected sales. And that more or less determined the stock valuation. And stocks didn't go up too much and didn't go down too much. They were sort of tied to the true valuation of a company. That all changed under Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton knocked out one of the chief pillars of control that was put in after the Great Depression. Then Bush came along and finished it off, and then we had a Wild West situation. And now it's happening again. And I think that we should talk about it and ask whether or not there should be an investigation. But the question is a rhetorical one, because who's going to investigate? There is no SEC. There is no Senate. There is no Congress. There is no authority to whom Wall Street answers. None. None whatsoever. We're watching the meltdown of Wall Street under the corrupt Obama administration, where there is no SEC presence, or else, obviously, if there was, Facebook couldn't have gotten away with this. There's no question there was an $18 billion loss in Facebook stock from Friday to Monday. What does that tell you? That's free market? Oh, that's the free market at work? How far do you have to go in your thinking to not understand anything? If we had a legitimate Security and Exchange Commission, Facebook would not have been able to do this and pull this off. Today, there would be a scream for an investigation of Morgan Stanley and, frankly, of Facebook with his skateboard. Skateboard and all. He'd be in the Senate on Tuesday.
Savage.